Chapter 1. The End of Her World. Rain poured heavily as if the heavens wept with her, but Olivia didn't cry. Not anymore. Her tears had long dried, just like her hope. She stood in the middle of the courtyard of the old countryside house, her hands trembling as she clutched the divorce papers. Cold, final, and devastating. She had signed them. She had loved Matthew with her whole heart. From the moment they married, she had dedicated every breath, every smile, and every sacrifice to him. But to him she had always been a snake in the grass, cunning, manipulative, untrustworthy. The noble son who became a successful man, Matthew Alden, had married her under pressure and regretted every second of it. He had never looked at her with love. Only suspicion. Only disdain. "You can stop pretending now," he had said coldly, placing the papers before her 2 days ago. "This marriage was a mistake. You fooled me once. I won't let you ruin me anymore." Fool him? She had been a fool, yes. A fool for thinking that her love could melt the ice around his heart. A fool for believing that if she stayed, endured, and remained faithful, he would one day see her. But he never did. And now it was over. No one defended her. No one cared to hear her side. Rumors had buried her alive. That she schemed, manipulated his family, fought with his sister, spread lies, controlled his finances. Lies, all lies. And Matthew believed every single one of them. When she was finally cast out, not a single friend or family member offered her shelter. Even her own relatives, intimidated by Matthew's name, turned her away. With nowhere to go, Olivia packed what little she had and moved to the countryside, into a dilapidated house she inherited from her late grandmother. And now she was alone. The wind howled outside as the storm grew worse. Thunder rolled across the sky as Olivia lit the last candle in her little wooden home. She sat beside the fire, watching it flicker, a worn blanket draped around her shoulders. Her body was cold, but her heart was colder still. She reached for the small box beneath the table and opened it slowly. Inside were the few treasures of her broken heart. Their wedding photo, where only she smiled, her worn-down wedding ring, and the letters she had written but never sent. Letters full of longing, of love, of apology for things she never did. She ran her fingers over the ring and whispered, "In my next life, please, let me never love him again. Let me never know his name. Let me be free from this pain." The storm grew louder, rumbling like a warning. Then came the sound, a low, deep growl that wasn't thunder. The earth trembled. At first Olivia thought she imagined it. But then the walls began to shake. Plates tumbled from the shelves. The candle extinguished. Then came the roar. A terrible landslide, a wave of earth and stone and trees, barreled down from the mountainside. Olivia stood frozen in place, eyes wide with terror. The door blew open, and in that last fleeting second she thought of Matthew. Not the cold, cruel man she had lived with, but the boy she had once glimpsed laughing with his younger brother. The man she had loved so foolishly, so desperately. "I hope you'll be happier in your next life," she whispered. And then, darkness. Matthew Alden stood in his office 2 days later, surrounded by silence. His assistant delivered the news with trembling hands. "Olivia, she's gone, sir. The landslide, she didn't make it." The words shattered the room. At first he didn't believe it. Couldn't. Olivia, brash, stubborn, irritating, dead? Just like that. But then they showed him a photo of the wreckage. The rescue workers found nothing. Not even her ring. Matthew dismissed everyone and locked the door behind him. Then he reached for the envelope on his desk. It was from his mother. Inside were letters. Evidence. Truth. Truth that Olivia had never done the things he accused her of. His family had lied. His friends had fed him poison. He had thrown her away based on rumors. Rumors others had crafted to isolate her. He sank to the floor, heart in pieces. He had killed her with his indifference. His distrust. His arrogance. "I'm sorry," he choked, gripping the ring he had returned to her. "I was wrong. So wrong." Silence answered him. And in that silence, Matthew dropped to his knees and pressed his forehead to the floor. "If there's a next life, if there's any mercy left in the heavens, let me find her again. Let me right what I've ruined. Let me love her the way she deserved." Outside the rain fell gently. But for Matthew the storm had only just begun. Chapter 2. A life she never wanted again. Olivia opened her eyes with a gasp. Warm sunlight filtered through lace curtains. The air smelled of spring blossoms and old paper. She sat up quickly, her heart hammering as she looked around. She was in a bedroom, not her old countryside shack, not the cold mansion where she once lived as Matthew Alden's discarded wife. No. This place was familiar and yet impossibly wrong. He rushed to the mirror. The reflection staring back wasn't the weary, thin woman she had become before death. It was her, only younger. Softer. 17. He stumbled back. No, this can't be. But it was. Her name was still Olivia. Olivia Reyes. The wealthy daughter of a publishing tycoon. She was back in her high school years. Back when her path hadn't yet crossed with his. Her knees gave way and she sank to the floor, shaking. Memories surged like waves. Her love for Matthew, her desperate attempts to win his heart, the hatred in his eyes, the feel of the cold paper in her hands as he divorced her, the sound of the landslide, the suffocating dark, and her final prayer. In my next life, let me never love him again. She laughed bitterly, her voice hoarse. So this is mercy, is it? You gave me another chance. This time she swore she would not waste it. She wouldn't fall into that trap again. She would avoid Matthew Alden at all costs. 2 blocks away across town, Matthew Alden jolted awake in his penthouse bedroom, drenched in sweat. His mind was spinning. Dreams, no memories, tore through him like fire. A woman's broken voice echoing in the dark. A pair of brown eyes filled with sorrow. A landslide. Death. Regret. Olivia, he whispered, the name clawing its way out of his throat. He stared at his trembling hands. They were smaller, smoother. His arms lacked the muscle he had built up through years of training. He rushed to the mirror and recoiled. He was young again. Younger than he'd ever been in his adult life. A teenager. He turned on his phone and saw the date. He was 17. Back in high school. Back before everything. And then the weight of it hit him. He had been reborn. And so had she. He closed his eyes, jaw clenched. This was the second chance he begged for. The gods or the universe, whoever had heard his final prayer, had given it to him. And this time he wouldn't waste it. He wouldn't believe the lies. He wouldn't push her away. He would protect her. Love her. Heal her. Weeks later, Olivia blended into her new life with unnerving precision. She smiled when needed, laughed with friends, played the role of the daughter her parents adored. But inside she kept herself locked behind a wall she refused to let anyone climb. Until he walked into the room. Matthew Alden. Her heart nearly stopped. He was still tall, still composed, still wearing that cool expression that once unraveled her. But this time she felt nothing but dread. He looked at her. And she knew in that second he remembered too. His eyes widened faintly. Pain flashed across his face. Regret. Longing. She turned and walked away without a word. He didn't follow. Not yet. At home that night, Olivia lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. He remembers. I saw it. And she hated how her heart reacted, how a part of it still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, it would be different this time. But she slapped that thought away. No. She had begged for this life to be free of him. She would not let pity or regret pull her back into a cycle of heartbreak. She would build a new future far from him. No more pain. No more Matthew. But fate, as always, had other plans. The next morning at school, a soft knock landed on the library table she occupied. She looked up and saw him. Matthew. His voice was soft, uncertain. Olivia, can we talk? Her chest tightened, but her face remained cold. No. She turned away. And yet the ghost of his old self, the man who once let her die alone, followed her into every hallway, every classroom. This life had only just begun. But the past would not stay buried. Chapter 3. Atonement in Silence. Matthew's POV. Matthew had never believed in second chances. He used to think life was a single straight path. You made your choices, lived with your consequences, and that was the end of it. Until he woke up 17 again. Until he saw Olivia. Alive. Whole. Untouched by heartbreak. Yet, when their eyes met for the first time in this new life, the world seemed to pause. The noise of the hallway, the chatter of classmates, the sound of his own breathing. Everything disappeared. All he could hear was her voice from his past life. I hope you'll be happier in your next life. He hadn't been. He had lived the rest of that lifetime in darkness. The truth had come too late. After her death, nothing tasted sweet. Success meant nothing. His bed, his home, his life, empty. She had been the light, and he had snuffed it out with his own hands. Now here she was walking past him again like he didn't exist. And rightly so. She owed him nothing. But he owed her everything. Matthew had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Ever since the memories returned, he had been quietly watching her. Not stalking. Not chasing. Just observing. She was different now. More cautious. Guarded. She smiled easily with others but kept a subtle distance, like a girl wearing armor beneath silk. She never looked his way. Not once. He tried not to let it sting. At the library, when he finally approached her, just a simple request to talk, he had rehearsed 1,000 ways to start. An apology. A confession. An explanation. But she didn't let him say a single word. No, she said. Final. And walked away. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the empty chair across the table. He couldn't blame her. He didn't deserve kindness. Not after what he'd done. Not after how he'd crushed her in the last life. But he couldn't give up. Not now that fate had opened this door. The following days, he began the quiet path to redemption. Not by chasing her. Not by forcing his way into her life. But by protecting her in ways she wouldn't even notice. When a rumor about Olivia spread, something petty and cruel, he found out who started it. The student was later caught cheating in another class. Matthew made sure of it. When Olivia's seat in class was moved near a group of jealous girls who used to mock her, he pulled a few strings behind the scenes. Suddenly, those girls had schedule changes. Olivia was assigned to a new group. When a teacher unfairly deducted points from her assignment, Matthew anonymously submitted an academic complaint with citations. The teacher quietly corrected the grade. He never once tried to take credit. He just wanted her to feel safe in this life. One afternoon, Matthew sat alone on the school rooftop watching the clouds drift across the sky. "You don't have to forgive me, Olivia," he whispered. "But I'll never stop making up for what I did." He remembered the look on her face the day he handed her the divorce papers. How he hadn't even looked her in the eyes. How cold his voice had been. How broken hers sounded when she asked, "Do you really hate me that much?" He had. Because he believed lies. And now, he couldn't even begin to fix that wound. But he would try. Even if it took this entire life. Even if she never gave him her heart again. Back in Olivia's POV. She could feel him watching her. Not in a predatory way. Just present. A constant, quiet presence that stayed in the background of her life. She noticed the changes. How the girls who used to glare at her were suddenly silent. How no one dared spread gossip. How her school life had become oddly peaceful. And she hated that a small part of her suspected it was because of him. "Oh, don't be swayed," she told herself. "He fooled you once. Don't let the softness in his eyes deceive you again." She remembered the night he didn't come when she was sick. The way he looked away when she cried. The way he let her die alone. She couldn't afford to forget. Still, when she turned a corner and found Matthew crouched beside a stray dog outside the campus gates, shielding it from the rain with his blazer, she paused. He didn't see her. He was just there, speaking gently to the dog like it was the most important creature in the world. The boy who had once been so cold, now looked quietly kind. Her heart faltered. Just for a second. But she turned and walked away. She wouldn't let herself feel anything. Not yet. Chapter 4. Cracks in the Armor. Olivia's POV. The rain came unexpectedly. It started with gentle drops during lunch, then turned into a storm by afternoon. Thunder echoed through the campus halls as students rushed to pack their things. Olivia lingered in the library, waiting for the worst of it to pass. He hated storms. She used to love the rain until that night. The night the mountain gave way and swallowed her whole. Now every crack of thunder made her flinch. Every heavy drop felt like the weight of soil crashing over her lungs. She tucked her books under her arm and stepped out into the empty corridor, her footsteps echoing through the silence. The power had flickered earlier, and now the hallway was lit only by emergency lights. Dim, flickering, like the breath of something waiting to collapse. She quickened her pace. Then boom. The lights went out. Total darkness. Her heart dropped. A loud clap of thunder crashed above the school, and a window shattered somewhere down the hall. Olivia dropped her books. Her hands trembled. Her knees weakened. Her breath turned shallow. Not again. The walls felt closer. She was buried again. He was dying again. Bo. Matthew's POV. He had been walking down the hall, umbrella in hand, ready to leave when he heard it. A book falling. A small broken gasp. And then silence. He turned sharply and found her, Olivia, pressed against the wall, her eyes wide with panic, her chest heaving. She didn't see him. He was somewhere else. Somewhere far darker. Without thinking, he crossed the space between them. Olivia. She didn't respond. Her lips moved, but there were no words. Just rapid, shallow breaths. A panic attack. Olivia, he said more firmly, kneeling before her. It's me. It's just the storm. You're safe. You're safe now. Still, she trembled, tears running down her cheeks in silence. Her nails clawed into her arms as if trying to anchor herself. He slowly reached for her wrists. Look at me. He didn't. So he did what he never dared to do before. He whispered her name, not the name everyone else called her, but the name only he used in the late years of their first life. Liv. Her eyes snapped to his. Recognition. And pain. But she focused on him. That's it, he said softly. Just breathe. With me. He took a slow inhale. Then exhaled. She mirrored him. Once. Twice. Until the trembling stopped. Until the fear faded into exhaustion. Back in Olivia's POV. She hated that she let him touch her. Hated more that she hadn't pushed him away. But she had needed someone, and he had been the one who came. Of course it was him. It was always him. He walked her to the waiting shed near the school gate in silence. He didn't say a word. Just offered her his umbrella and held her bag. No questions. No pity. Just presence. When they reached the shelter, he finally spoke. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you before. She flinched. He looked down, rain dripping from his bangs. I know you don't want to hear anything from me. And I won't push. But I meant it, back then. At your grave. I swore if I got another life, I'd use it to make things right. Her breath caught. You remember everything, she whispered. He nodded once. She looked away. Then you know why I want nothing to do with you. I do. So why are you here? He hesitated, then said, because even if you never love me again, I still love you. And I will, even if I have to do it from a distance. Olivia felt something inside her splinter. Because for the first time in 2 lives he said those words first. Not her. Him. She didn't respond. She didn't promise forgiveness. But she didn't leave either. And Matthew, he didn't push. He just sat beside her, quietly holding the umbrella between them, shielding her from the storm. Chapter 5. The Letter That Never Came. Olivia's POV, present. The storm had passed, but the shadows it brought lingered. Olivia sat at her desk, staring at her open notebook. Her pen hovered above the page, unmoving. She had homework due, readings to finish, but her mind was far away. It had been a week since the panic attack. A week since she'd seen Matthew's eyes, filled not with contempt but pain. And sincerity. He hadn't spoken to her since. No surprise. He was keeping his distance like he promised. But the silence didn't comfort her. It haunted her. Because she could still feel the warmth of his hand around her wrist, the steadiness of his voice guiding her through the dark. And worst of all, his words. Even if you never love me again, I still love you. That had never happened in their first life. Back then she was always the one reaching. Always the one holding on. And Matthew, he had never once looked back. Olivia's POV. Past life letter. She stood, crossing to the small chest she kept in the corner of her room. Inside, tucked between old notebooks and forgotten photos, was a single yellowed envelope, sealed but never sent. A letter she had written the night before she died. Her last goodbye. She opened it with trembling hands. Dear Matthew, I don't know if you'll ever read this. Maybe you've already forgotten me. Maybe you're happier that way. But before I go, I want to leave this behind, not to change your mind or win you back. Just so someone somewhere might know what was in my heart. I loved you. From the first time I saw you until now, even after everything, I never stopped. I know you think I'm cruel. That I manipulated my way into your life. That I twisted everyone around me. But Matthew, I never wanted your riches. I never wanted your name. I only wanted your heart. And I failed. I wasn't strong enough to leave. Not until you threw me out. It hurts. Still does. But I don't blame you anymore. I wish things could have been different. If there's another life, I hope you're free. And I hope I'm far, far away from you. Because even love like this can kill. Goodbye, Olivia. Back in the present, Olivia's POV. Her tears fell silently onto the paper. She had forgotten this letter. Forgotten the rawness of her final days. Forgotten how ready she had been to disappear from his world forever. Now he was back. And he had changed. But how could she trust him? How could she trust herself? She folded the letter back into the envelope and pressed it against her chest. I loved you, she had written. And even now, a part of her still did. But love, she reminded herself, wasn't a promise of happiness. Not always. Matthew's POV. Matthew sat alone in the park near the school, watching families and children move about under the afternoon sun. He hadn't spoken to Olivia since that night. He wanted to give her space. Let her breathe. Let her think. But every day he found himself scanning the hallways for her. He didn't know if she would ever let him close again. But what mattered wasn't being loved. It was being worthy of it. This time he would earn it. The next day, when Olivia arrived at her classroom, she found a single note inside her locker. Folded neatly. No name. No flourish. Just a short line written in familiar, clean handwriting. You were never cruel. You were the only light I had. I just didn't see it in time. He stared at it for a long time. Then gently folded it and placed it inside her bag, right beside the letter she once wrote for him in silence. Chapter 6. The words she never said until now. Present, Olivia's POV. She found him alone after school, standing in the music room. He wasn't playing anything, just staring at the silent piano as if it might offer him an answer. Her footsteps were soft, but he turned anyway. As if he knew she would come. Matthew met her eyes, quiet, steady, waiting. Olivia's hands curled into fists at her sides. I read the note, she said. The one in my locker. He gave a slight nod, saying nothing. She stepped closer, her voice calm but raw. You don't get to rewrite everything just because you regret it. I know. You don't get to act like this is a love story, she said, bitterness rising. As back then it wasn't. It was a nightmare. Matthew's jaw tightened. You believed everyone else but me, Olivia said, her voice breaking. You accused me, humiliated me, left me with nothing. You divorced me and threw me away like I was some poisonous mistake. I know, he whispered. I begged you to believe me, she said. Do you remember that? I begged. And you just turned your back. Matthew lowered his head. I see you now, trying to make it right. Trying to change, Olivia continued. And a part of me wants to believe it. But I'm afraid. Because I don't know if I can survive loving you again. Silence stretched between them like a wound slowly tearing open. Then Matthew spoke, softly but with unshakable weight. I don't expect you to love me again, he said. But I'll love you anyway. Whether you forgive me or not. Olivia's eyes burned. Her chest ached. She turned away, but didn't leave. Instead she asked quietly, Did you ever visit my grave? Flashback. Past life, Matthew's POV. The grave was simple. Too simple. The name etched into the stone read Olivia Riz Alden. A hyphen that didn't matter anymore. She had been dead for 2 weeks. Matthew had found out only days after her funeral. By the time he arrived at the countryside, the house was gone. Flattened by the landslide. There had been nothing left but a cracked photograph frame, a worn blanket, and a single unopened letter addressed to him. He didn't take it. He didn't deserve to read it. Now he stood before her resting place, a bouquet in one hand and rain in his eyes. He hadn't cried in years. But now he broke. The storm soaked his coat. His knees hit the ground. He placed the flowers down and whispered, You were telling the truth all along. I know that now. I was the one who lied, to myself. His voice trembled. I hated you for things you never did. I thought you were cold, manipulative. But I was the cruel one. I never looked closer. Never asked. I just believed what I wanted to believe. The wind answered him with silence. I know it's too late, he choked. But if there's another life, if there's even a single chance, I'll spend it loving you right. I swear, Olivia. I'll protect you this time. Even if you never look at me again. He bowed his head and stayed there, until the moon replaced the sun. Until his knees bled from the gravel. Until the world forgot, but he never did. Back to present. Olivia's eyes welled. He didn't speak of it, but she saw it in his eyes now. The pain of that night, the weight of that grave. I don't forgive you, she whispered. Matthew gave a nod. I don't deserve it. But... Her voice cracked. I want to try, she said. Not for what we were, but for what we could be. Maybe, something new. Slowly. For a moment Matthew said nothing. Then he exhaled, a breath like a quiet prayer. I'll wait, he said. Her fingers brushed the piano as she looked at him, unsure and still healing, but no longer alone in the dark. Chapter 7. A soft beginning. Present, Olivia's POV. They started seeing each other more often. Not by design and never alone, but fate or coincidence seemed determined to push them together. Group projects. Class rotations. Shared corridors. The universe was gently nudging them closer. And for once Olivia didn't resist. She didn't run. She didn't lean in either. She just stayed. Sometimes they would talk, brief simple things. Books, music, shared notes. Nothing deep. Nothing dangerous. But sometimes late at night she would remember the feel of his hand brushing hers when they passed a pen back and forth, or the way his voice softened whenever he spoke her name. He's different now, she told herself. But was she? Matthew's POV. He didn't try to force anything. He walked beside her at her pace, never ahead. He didn't speak of love. Didn't apologize again. He had said his piece. Now he proved it through presence. One afternoon they sat in the library together, reading in silence. Their books weren't the same, but every few minutes she would glance at him, just to check if he was still there. He always was. Flashback. Past life, first year of marriage. Their wedding had been quiet. Not romantic. Not joyful. Just necessary, at least in Matthew's mind. To Olivia it was a dream come true. She had stood beside him in a white dress she picked herself, even though she knew he didn't care what she wore. He had barely looked at her when they signed the registry. But in their first months of marriage, there were fleeting moments of warmth. Like the day he caught a fever after overworking and she stayed by his bedside for 3 days straight, feeding him porridge, wiping his sweat and refusing to sleep. He woke up groggy on the 3rd day to find her dozing beside him, her head on the edge of the bed, her hand gently clutching his. Why are you still here? He croaked. She stirred and smiled. Where else would I be? He hadn't known what to say. She had brushed his hair back and whispered, even if you don't love me, I'll still stay. He hadn't responded. He just closed his eyes and turned his face away. But something in his chest had ached. He didn't know it was love. Not yet. Back to present, Olivia's POV. She remembered that version of herself so clearly. So hopeful. So blind. So full of love. It hurt. But it also made her smile a little. That part of her was gone now, burned away by time and betrayal. But the embers were still there. And slowly, they were warming again. One day after school, Matthew handed her a small, folded piece of paper. She unfolded it, expecting another note. But it was a sketch. A pencil drawing of a dog. Ears too big, eyes wide and happy. It looked familiar. Then she remembered. The stray he'd rescued weeks ago in the rain. She looked up at him, puzzled. He shrugged. I'm learning to draw. Thought you might like it. It wasn't perfect. But it was soft. And silly. And it made her laugh. Really laugh. For the first time in a long time. He handed it back. Keep it. You'll want to see how much better you get someday. He didn't smile. But his eyes sparkled with something close. Hope. They weren't in love. Not yet. They were two people walking through the ruins of a shared past, discovering new paths through old wounds. And for the first time in 2 lives, they were walking together. Chapter 8. The Ghost Who Lied. Olivia's POV. Things were almost peaceful. She and Matthew still kept their distance in public, careful not to invite questions. But their quiet moments were becoming more frequent. Shared laughter in the library, unspoken understanding in group discussions, a growing rhythm of something tender between them. Olivia had begun to believe, tentatively, cautiously, that maybe, just maybe, this life could be different. Until she showed up. Karina Moore. In her past life, Karina had been one of Matthew's closest confidants. Elegant, charming, and calculating. She was the one who had planted many of the seeds of distrust between Olivia and Matthew. Always subtly, always behind a smile. I just thought you should know she's been meeting with someone from your father's side. Looks suspicious, don't you think? I heard she twisted the truth about your sister's scholarship. Don't blame me, Matthew. I'm just worried about you. Lies. All of them. And Matthew had believed her. Karina had vanished from Olivia's life after the divorce, but she had been one of the architects of her downfall. And now here she was again, transferred into their school mid-year, walking through the front gates with the same glossy hair, the same flawless smile. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. Karina's eyes scanned the courtyard and landed on her. She smiled. Like she remembered everything too. Matthew's POV. He saw her before Olivia did. His stomach turned. Karina. She was just as he remembered, poised and dangerous. He didn't know if she had regained her memories too, but one look at Olivia and the smug tilt of Karina's head made him fear the worst. He moved toward Olivia immediately, intercepting her before Karina could get too close. You okay? He asked, gently touching her elbow. She didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on Karina like a deer spotting a hunter. I didn't know, Matthew said quickly. I had no idea she was transferring here. Olivia gave a small nod, but her face was cold. Just stay away from her, he said. Whatever she says, it's not true. Not anymore. Olivia turned to him, her voice calm but flat. Used to say that back then too. Right before you believed every lie. Matthew flinched. She didn't mean it to wound, but it did. As it was the truth. That evening, Olivia's POV. Karina cornered her near the lockers. Funny, isn't it? Karina said sweetly. The three of us back together again. Olivia didn't flinch. I don't have time for you. Oh, I'm sure you don't. Karina leaned in, lowering her voice. Tell me, how does it feel? Knowing the man who once threw you away is chasing you again? Must be tempting to forgive him. I didn't come back to relive that nightmare, Olivia said. And if you think you can start again, I won't be silent this time. Karina chuckled softly. Olive, you were silent last time. That's why you lost. The words scraped across her heart like thorns. But Olivia didn't show it. She wouldn't give Karina the satisfaction. Later, Matthew's POV. When he found Olivia on the rooftop, she was alone, hugging her arms to herself. I told her to back off, he said softly. She won't, Olivia replied. You know that. Silence stretched between them. Then Olivia turned to him. Her eyes weren't accusing, they were just tired. Do you still believe her? No. Not even a little? I used to, Matthew admitted. Back then I trusted the wrong people and paid the price. And what about now? I trust you, he said. Even if you never trust me again. Her gaze held his for a long moment. And then quietly she said, I don't trust her. But I do believe you've changed. Pause. But I'm not sure that's enough. Matthew nodded. Then I'll keep proving it. In the shadows behind the rooftop door, Karina watched them through the crack. She frowned. This wasn't the same Olivia. And this Matthew, he wasn't easy to manipulate anymore. But she had broken them once. And she wasn't done yet. Chapter 9, The Breaking Point. Karina's POV. Karina remembered everything. The moment she woke up in this new life, 10 years old again, curled beneath the velvet covers of her childhood bed, she had laughed. She had another chance. In her past life she had almost had everything. Power, influence, proximity to Matthew Alden. But Olivia, that stupid lovesick little thing, had always stood in the way. Karina had watched Olivia win Matthew's attention. Win his marriage. And even when Olivia was discarded, she still haunted him. Even dead, she won. Karina had spent her last days clinging to wealth, surrounded by yes-men, yet utterly alone. No one had loved her. Not even Matthew, whose guilt had consumed him for the girl he once pushed away. That weak girl who died in a landslide like some tragic heroine. When Karina died, bitter and alone, her final thought was this. I want a do-over. I want to win this time. And now she would. She watched them from a distance, Olivia and Matthew, growing closer again. It made her sick. Matthew was colder now, less trusting. But Olivia, Karina could sense the cracks. She was still kind beneath all the armor. Still soft. That softness would be her undoing. Peasant, Olivia's POV. It happened fast. The student council elections had turned into chaos when a scandal broke. A fake anonymous message accused Olivia of academic dishonesty, claiming she had cheated on 2 tests, using her father's connections to change grades. The screenshots spread like wildfire. Olivia sat in the guidance office, numb. The accusations were detailed, crafted, weaponized. And though she knew it wasn't true, it felt familiar. Too familiar. He recognized the pattern. This wasn't just a student prank. This was Karina. Matthew burst through the doors just as her name was being put on academic probation. I have proof she didn't cheat, he said, placing a printed email exchange on the table. Time-stamped messages showing Olivia asked for clarification and study guides before the exam. The counselor reviewed it in silence. The matter would still be investigated, but her punishment was suspended. When they left the office, Olivia didn't say anything for a long time. Matthew's POV. He waited outside with her under the old school archway. I knew she'd come for you, he said. I should have been faster. You were, Olivia replied quietly. In the past you wouldn't have looked twice. You'd have believed her without asking. Her voice was trembling, not with fear, but with restrained fury. I'm tired of defending myself, Matthew. Every time something good happens, someone tries to rip it apart. You don't have to defend yourself alone anymore. She looked up at him, eyes shining. Then prove it. Not with promises. Not with apologies. Prove it with action. Stand by me, not behind me. Not quietly. Not secretly. Stand with me. I will, he said without hesitation. And for the first time she believed him. Karina's POV. She watched them through the tinted windows of the black car waiting near the gate. Her fingers tapped the door lightly. So that's how it is, she murmured. The little mouse has grown teeth. She didn't smile this time. Winning Matthew back might not be possible now. But destroying Olivia again? That was still on the table. Chapter 10, The Choice They Made. Olivia's POV. The confrontation came sooner than expected. It happened in the auditorium just after the student council meeting. Olivia was walking backstage to return some documents when she heard voices. Karina's unmistakable tone and another student. You did well. I'll handle the rest, Karina said sharply. Just remember you're getting the internship because of me. Not because you're smart. Olivia had already begun recording. Her fingers were steady now. Her voice calmer than it had any right to be. I always knew you liked puppets, Karina, she said as she stepped out from behind the curtain. But I didn't think you'd get this sloppy. Karina turned, eyes narrowing. You little. But before she could speak, Matthew appeared behind Olivia. I sent the audio file to the principal, he said. And the school board. Karina's smile cracked. You think this makes you heroes? She hissed. You think this changes the past? No, Olivia said. This doesn't change the past. But it ends it, Matthew added. Karina looked between them. 2 people who had once crumbled so easily, now standing together like stone. She walked away without another word. No tantrum. No last threat. Just silence. The storm she once controlled had finally passed. Matthew's POV. After it was over, he and Olivia stood alone in the empty hallway. He turned to her slowly. This doesn't fix everything. I know that. She looked up at him. But I want to start from where we are, he said. Not from guilt. Not from regret. Just now. If you'll let me. Olivia stared at him for a long time. And then she took his hand. Not trembling. Not hesitant. Just real. I'm tired of being scared, she said softly. Let's build something that doesn't need to be rewritten. He nodded. And for the first time in 2 lifetimes, they were on the same page. Epilogue. 1 year later. Spring came early that year. The cherry trees on campus bloomed brighter than ever, petals dancing like soft snow through the breeze. Olivia sat under one of those trees, reading a worn book, her head resting lightly on Matthew's shoulder. They didn't need grand declarations anymore. Just shared silence. Shared peace. She had forgiven, not because she forgot but because she had healed. He had loved, not because of guilt but because of choice. They visited her old home together, where the landslide had taken her once. Planted wildflowers there. Let the past rest. Karina had transferred out quietly, her influence extinguished. No one spoke of her anymore. As the sun dipped low behind the mountains, Matthew leaned down and whispered, "Thank you." Olivia looked at him, confused. "For what?" "For letting me find you again." She smiled. "In the next life," she said teasingly, "you'll chase me first." He chuckled. "Already did." They stayed there until the stars came out, two souls who had once been lost to bitterness, now found in love. This life they chose differently. And this time they chose each other. Bonus chapter: The Lie That Broke Them. Matthew's POV. Past life 1 year before the divorce. Matthew used to believe he was a good judge of character. He had grown up in a powerful family where trust was currency and deception a language. So when he married Olivia, a match arranged by obligation not affection, he watched her carefully. At first she was quiet, soft, too obedient. He mistook her gentleness for calculation. Then came the rumors. She bribed the scholarship board to get her cousin in, Karina whispered over coffee, showing him documents, conveniently printed and unsigned. "Did you know she's been meeting your uncle in private? He has shares in your father's company. Be careful, Matthew. She was at the hospital the day your sister's treatment was delayed." Coincidence? He never confronted Olivia directly. He didn't ask. He just watched. And the more distant she became, hurt by his coldness, though he didn't realize it at the time, the more he thought it confirmed everything. Karina fed him half-truths and forged documents. Photos taken at angles. Snippets of conversations. Even anonymous letters from concerned relatives. And he bought every single one. Because he had never truly opened his heart to Olivia to begin with. He had married her, not loved her. And when someone told him she was a threat, he accepted it. He turned cold. Cold enough that she eventually stopped trying. Then came the final blow. Karina told him that Olivia had been plotting to take control of the Alden family trust with the help of his cousin. She said Olivia had forged a document to gain access to a critical bank account. Matthew exploded. That night he handed Olivia divorce papers. She didn't cry. She just looked at him and said, "Do you really hate me that much?" He said yes. Even now the memory choked him. Final bonus chapter. Years later. In the coffee shop. 10 years later. Olivia's POV. The bell above the cafe door jingled, letting in a burst of cool morning air and the soft chatter of regulars. Olivia smiled as she wiped down the counter, her apron slightly dusted with flour. The chalkboard menu above her read, "Brewed with love, Alden Coffee and Company." The scent of cinnamon rolls and fresh ground espresso lingered in the air. Behind her, Matthew was fixing the espresso machine, sleeves rolled up, his wedding ring glinting as he worked. His eyes still lit up every time they met hers. At the corner booth, their daughter, Leah, scribbled with crayons on a napkin. She was 5. Sharp like her mother. Gentle like her father. And full of opinions about how much whipped cream a drink should have. "Mommy," Leah called, "I drew our shop." Olivia walked over, kneeling beside her. The drawing was crude but sweet. 3 stick figures holding mugs under a sign that said Love Cafe. The middle figure had curly hair like hers. The tallest had spiky brown lines. The smallest had a crown. "You're a princess now?" Olivia teased. Leah grinned. "No. I'm the boss." Matthew chuckled from the counter. "She is your daughter." Olivia laughed softly. Sometimes she still woke up from dreams of mountains and rain and things that used to hurt. But then she'd hear the coffee brewing, her daughter's sleepy voice asking for pancakes, and Matthew's hand brushing against hers. And she knew. This life was the one she chose. And it was enough.